What's going on, everybody? Welcome to The Shift. It is episode 109 right here with Francisco Rojas, and got some good stuff for you today. There's a lot of, WBC rosters announced. We're like 3 weeks away, 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks away, whatever it is. Man, some latest hot stove stuff to get to. Got to get to the Brendan Donovan trade, give you my thoughts on that. And also, to end the show today, do want to give you my Super Bowl prediction, because Super Bowl, I'm recording this on the day of the Super Bowl, so might as well give you a prediction on the game. But first things first, I do want to say rest in peace to Terrence Gore, who I guess technically a 3-time World Series champ. He only played 112 regular season games over the course of about 8 or 9 seasons during his career, but he was really used as somebody that teams use in the postseason to be a pinch runner, steal bases, defensive replacements, stuff like that. Not to diminish the guy's career or anything, but I mean that's what he was. And not sure exactly how he died. There wasn't too much out there, at least confirmed on how he passed away, unfortunately. But he is a 3-time World Series winner. 2015 Royals, 2020 Dodgers, 2020 Atlanta Braves. And yeah, man, rest in peace. And like I said, really was used as a replacement to pinch run or a defensive replacement for some of these teams during the postseason. So he, was a 3-time World Series winner. And, rest in peace to a former major leaguer and someone that won a few championships. So rest in peace to Terrence Gore. But where I wanted to start with today's show was, do have to talk about, it's probably the top name on the market for starting pitchers, Framber Valdez, who signs a 3-year, $115 million deal. After a couple of years, he does have an option to opt out of his contract after the next 2 seasons. But Framber Valdez goes to the Detroit Tigers, 3 years, $115 million. And on the other side, this week, Tarik Skubal wins his arbitration case against the Detroit Tigers for $32 million. The Tigers filed for 19, but Skubal wins his case for $32 million. And Skubal used a tactic that was used by Tim Lincecum in 2009, where he brought his Cy Young plaques to the hearing, but apparently Skubal didn't even need to use it. Apparently Skubal didn't even have to bring out the plaques. But it's kind of funny in a way. But Skubal wins his arbitration case in his final year with the Tigers. $32 million, will be a free agent by the end of the year. So with that being said, looking at this now, you're going to have Valdez and Skubal at the start of the season here as the Tigers trying to make it past the divisional series, something that they have failed to do the last couple of years as they've been rebuilding, the last 5-6 years. But as the Tigers now have probably one of the best 1-2 punches in baseball, between Valdez and Skubal. It really, let's be real. The last couple of years, especially a couple of years ago in 2024, it's really been Skubal and friends, right? Not to diminish any of the other players on Detroit. Obviously Riley Green has emerged as one of the better players on the team. And Spencer Torkelson had a good year, 30+ home runs. And Kerry Carpenter, my gosh, he had a good year last year and was really clutch for them, at certain points. But really, going back a couple of years ago, it was really Tarik Skubal and friends. And now you have Skubal and Valdez, again, probably one of the best 1-2 punches, as far as rotations go in baseball. But is this a smart move for the Tigers? Because Tarik Skubal, there's been obviously, over the last year or so now, it's been talk of, well, are the Tigers actually going to trade Skubal? Because the reports of them being far off on what an extension would look like, where Skubal's probably looking like he's trying to go for a $400 million deal, even before a potential lockout this time next year. Hopefully us, baseball fans, hopefully we're not going to, have to miss any games. But was this a smart move for the Tigers? And, the potential that Skubal gets traded, like, is this a good look? Now they're paying, Valdez, whatever it is, 115 over 3 years, however much they're going to have to pay him this year. And then Skubal having to be paid $32 million this year before he hits free agency. And I think this is a really good move. I think this is definitely a really smart move for the Tigers. I mean, they're a really good chance that they're not going to bring back Taylor Skubal after this year. There's a really good chance that is not going to happen. Skubal is probably going to go somewhere else, sign a deal. I don't think Skubal is going to be traded. The only way Skubal would get traded is if the Tigers are just absolutely horrendous by the trade deadline, and something like that happens. Something like where the Tigers are just a really bad team. But I don't think anyone foresees that happening. So this is kind of a more or less like a going all in type of year for the Tigers. This is an all in year for them. So you bring in Valdez and you have Skubal, and yet you have a really a pretty good rotation between those two, between Casey Mize, Jack Flaherty, Reese Olson. That's a really good rotation. Casey Mize, after dealing with injuries, early part of his career so far, had a pretty good year last year. Reese Olson has shown flashes even though he's been injured. And Jack Flaherty, even though Flaherty wasn't like fantastic or anything last year, he still has a good track record throughout his career. And even in the postseason, going back to a couple of years ago with the Dodgers when they won a championship. So then the Tigers have a really good rotation. You bring in Kenley Jansen. You bring in or you re-sign Kyle Finnegan, who's been one of the better relievers in the National League before he came over to Detroit last year. And their bullpen's not perfect, but the bullpen looking pretty solid. They have a really good rotation, and the offense, pretty solid offense that you could, maybe they could have done a little more this offseason. Missed out on Bregman, but the offense, which is pretty good, I would say, pretty good solid. That's probably the term I would use. But you could add potentially the deadline. You could potentially add at the deadline with all these young pieces that you have. You have one of the best farm systems in baseball, headed by two of the bigger names in this prospect class between Kevin McGonigal and Max Clark. McGonigal, they're talking about this guy being ready this year. Maybe there's potential Max Clark is ready this year. You have a bunch of this, these young crop of players between Clark and McGonigal, and then guys that are already up, Kerry Carpenter, Riley Green, who's, I guess isn't that young anymore, but Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson, former number 1 overall pick. There's these young crop of players that they already have. And with, again, like I said, potential to maybe use any of these pieces to add at the deadline in a trade, maybe not. But, you saw how close they've been the last couple of years going look at last year against Seattle. I mean, that was an awesome series, and they were really close, the year before against Cleveland, at least getting past, going to 5 games, both of those years of last year and the year before. So they're right there. I mean, like they're a game away, a couple of innings away, whatever. They're really close to getting to the next step to the championship series. And you're already better, I think, than you were the last couple of years by adding Valdez. And then if you add a little bit of offense, potentially the deadline, or your offense is just getting better by just the natural development of players, getting older and older. We'll see how better Carpenter is, and Torkelson, Riley Green, and if McGonigal, Max Clark, if these guys can come up and make an impact there. And by the way, Gleyber Torres having a pretty good bounce back year for them as well. Gleyber Torres kind of, MIA in the last couple of years since that, this good couple of years that he had with New York. But there's some good pieces there, man. Good pieces for Detroit. So would I say Detroit is like a World Series favorite or anything like that this year? Not necessarily, but I think you would go into the season saying they're potential contender, and depending on how they're looking by the deadline, if they're adding or if guys are having breakout years, like real big breakout years, then maybe that changes the picture for them. So 2026, they're already looking that this Valdez deal already makes them, to me, a potential World Series contender. And then after this year, where Tarik Skubal probably isn't coming back, I mean, there's probably like an 80 or 90% chance that he's going somewhere else because they're far apart on this massive deal that Skubal's probably going to get. But still, Skubal won't be here after 2026, but then you still have Framber Valdez at least for another year because, of this player option after the 2027 season. But Framber Valdez, you still have him for another year. Jackson Jobe, he's young, but there's potential there. And Reese Olson as well. And you could probably build your rotation, through free agency like you did this year with Framber Valdez in future years. So you can do that. And their farm system, like I said, according to ESPN, 6th ranked farm system in baseball. So you already have, a good future after this. So I think the Tigers have set themselves up nicely with this Valdez deal. I know, by the way, side note, I understand, like I just rewatched it this morning, the whole, Valdez cross up. And, from last season, if anyone remembers, Framber Valdez, I forget which catcher it was. It was not what I cannot think of his name right now. Catcher that just signed with the Twins. It'll come back to me. Of course, it'll come back to me at some point in the show. But anyway, crossed, might have been Yainer Diaz. I forget. But either way, crossed up the Houston catcher and, hits him in the stomach. And Valdez did not apologize about it. It was a really bad look, whether he meant to do it or not. Like, really bad look. And I know I get all that, but, and that maybe that scared away teams a little bit. I totally get that. But look, Valdez still one of the better pitchers in the American League, since he came out with Houston in 2020, and has been a big part of, their rotations the last 4 or 5 years, especially, going back to 2022 when they won that World Series against the Phillies. And this is a good deal, transitioning maybe from Skubal to a Valdez. Obviously, there aren't a lot of pitchers in baseball like Tarik Skubal. It's really only guys like Skeens, Wheeler when he's healthy, guys like that. Corbin Burns too. Not many guys like that. So I know you're not going to be able to necessarily like replace Tarik Skubal with Framber Valdez. I know that, but I think the Tigers have still set themselves up nicely to where Skubal's going to leave, and it's going to be Framber and then other guys that they're trying to develop here between Olson, Jobe, and you got Casey Mize too. Hopefully Mize can consistently be the pitcher that Detroit hoped to be when they drafted him number 1 overall some years back too. So I like this deal for Detroit, man. I like this deal a lot. In Detroit, I think Tigers fans, as much as you hate to see somebody like Tarik Skubal probably leave after this year, I think there's still some stuff to be excited about after this Framber Valdez trade. When you have a bright future between some of the guys you have up right now and the future of the team, with your farm system and like I said, with young guys at the moment. So would love to know where you are on this Framber Valdez deal. I think a lot of people like it. But what had to touch on it this week because of the magnitude of Valdez coming off the board. Zach Gallen's probably the only other one out there now, I guess, name wise as far as starting pitchers go. And so you get the big news with the arbitration deal with Skubal, him winning $32 million. It's a record. It passes Juan Soto. And yeah, so I'm curious about that. You can also follow the Shift_media on Twitter. And I put a Twitter poll out there. Was it a smart move for the Tigers to sign Framber Valdez? Yes or no? Go vote on the poll and let me know what you think about that. Okay, moving on to the meat and potatoes portion of the program. And man, we get the World Baseball Classic roster. And like I said, I'm so stoked for the World Baseball Classic. It's going to start very, very soon in a couple of weeks. And man, I wanted to talk about just some of these rosters, just as far as like who's the favorite, because is there any doubt that it's not the US? Like it has to be the US, and I guess we're being biased here, but I just think the difference. Look, Japan, I know they're the reigning champs, and Japan should definitely get some love. Like I think they have to be one of the favorites if you're doing like a couple of favorites, but the U.S. has to be the favorite for the WBC. I mean the only difference, I mean, or the difference between 2023 and 2026 is their pitching. I mean, who is the the rotation in 2023? It was like what, Lance Lynn, Adam Wainwright, Merrill Kelly, and look, all in their primes, all really good pitchers. But you are getting an unbelievable rotation between Skeens, between Skubal, Logan Webb, Joe Ryan, and the last one I'm looking at, Matthew Boyd, who had a really good season for Chicago last year. And I mean, that is a scary rotation. It's 1,000% the best rotation in the WBC. I mean, Skeens, I already touched on Tarek Skubal. Skeens, we already know about Paul Skeens, and Logan Webb, who I think is I wouldn't say like super underrated or anything like that, but tiny bit underrated. I mean, Logan Webb's been one of the best pitchers in baseball, the last like 3-4 years. He really has. So, I mean, you get those three alone, and then you get Joe Ryan too, who's a really good pitcher, and then again Boyd, who had a good year for Chicago. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. And then you get Mason Miller in the bullpen. You get Clayton Kershaw, who didn't play last time in the WBC, but since he's retired now, decided he's going to give it, a last shot here on this team. It would be really cool, by the way, right? Like Kershaw to go from winning the World Series and storybook ending WBC, or if going from World Series, back-to-back World Series titles to end his career, and then win a WBC, which I think the U.S. is the favorite. That would be really cool. But just going back to, David Bednar, Clay Holmes, Griffin Jacks, Brad Keller. I said Mason Miller already, right? Gabe Spire, Garrett Whitlock, like really good bullpen too. And then the roster, of course, as far as the lineup goes, dude, Cal Raleigh, we already know the season he had. Kyle Schwarber, already know the season he has, the DH. Bryce Harper's your first baseman. Gunnar Henderson, your second baseman. Bobby Witt Jr., your shortstop. Alex Bregman, your third baseman. Corbin Carroll, Buxton, and Judge is your outfield. And then on your bench, you have PCA, who had a big breakout year. Goldschmidt, Ernie Clement, Will Smith, and Bryce Terang. I mean, it's the best roster on the WBC. The only thing that I will say is that, and maybe I don't watch, the NPB enough over there in Japan and Korea. Like, I don't watch enough, maybe, but like you have to give Japan their respect. But this is for me, it being a big baseball fan, but obviously a big MLB fan, not watching enough of what goes on over there. Like, how can the U.S. not be the favorite? How can they not be the favorite when you're looking at that roster? But the Japanese roster too, as well, also pretty good, at least as far as names that I know, with Seiya Suzuki, with Murakami, with Akamoto. Otani's not going to pitch, and maybe that makes a difference for them. You're not going to get Roki Sasaki this time either, but you are going to get Yamamoto, of course, coming off a legendary postseason performance and year. Kikuchi, Sugano, those are the names that I know. Maybe I do need to do a little more research on some of the other guys, but you have to give Japan their respect. But again, the U.S. is just so stacked, and a team, and I think people are just so focused on the U.S. and Japan, but like, remember, the Dominican Republic is freaking stacked. The DR is stacked. You get their rotation: Alcantara, Christopher Sanchez, Brian Bayo, and Severino. Good rotation, definitely good. Austin Wells, I don't know what is. He must have some heritage there somehow, some way. And we'll get to this stuff in a second too. I want to talk about it as well. But Austin Wells is your catcher. Junior Caminero, who's coming out for breakout season, needs your DH. Vladdy Jr., Ketel Marte, Perdomo, Machado. That's your infield. And with Soto, Julio, and Tatis. Don't forget, Dominican Republic is really good too. Like, they've got to be right there as far as like favorites for the WBC. Like, they have to be right there. Like, I'd go personally, I'd go USDR and then Japan. And I do think Ohtani not pitching this time around definitely makes a difference. And then you don't get Sasaki as well. So the DR is really good as well, man. Really good as well. And then you get Camilo Doval over there in the bullpen. You have Brazoban, Sir Anthony, Carlos Estevez. Yeah, so I mean they have a really good, you have a good pen as well. So I mean, like, the DR has to be right there. They have to be DR. So Japan, the US, Japan, DR. I personally, I would say US and DR. That's my 1 and 2 as far as who I think are the favorites. Venezuela, you have to give them some love as well. Headlined by Acuna and Churio in the outfield. You do get Ranger Suarez there, Pablo Lopez. Good team with maybe a chance, but Venezuela is pretty good. Mexico, also pretty good. You got Rosarena. You get Aranda at first base. You get Lane Thomas in the outfield. Good team, but probably not competing with the DR, US, and Japan. Also, man, like, one that had a chance for sure, but man, with the whole insurance issues with this, which is a whole nother thing, these insurance, I get it, but like, also, like, you got to find a way for some of these superstars to play. Like Puerto Rico, who has a decent roster, it would have looked a lot better with Lindor and Correa, man. Lindor, Correa, and Baez, who Baez apparently gets not be able to playing for Puerto Rico in this WBC because of him smoking weed in 2023 and getting caught, which is, like, I guess, in today's society, especially, like, whatever. But, they just got to figure, I kind of get it with the insurance thing, but also, like, I don't know, man, it's the WBC. It's like basically, the Olympics for baseball, or at least for, professional baseball. Like, you got to find a way for these guys to play. I know, these guys want to play for their country. Correa, Lindor, Baez want to play, and they're all not able to play because of recent injuries and, in recent years and everything like that, and not being able to get covered by insurance. Like, I get it, but, like, also, like, I don't know, man. MLB, WBC, you got to find a way for these guys to be able to play, because Puerto Rico was going to be, one of the favorites to probably win as well. Like, that. They would have had a chance to win. I mean, they do have MJ Melendez, and they have Arenado, who's, again, this is one where I'm like, how do you play for Team US and then play for Puerto Rico? That just doesn't make any sense to me. I think that's dumb. Like, you'd be able to pick one, and that's it. That's the only one you can ever play for. But yeah, I mean, Puerto Rico is a decent team, but, like, it would have been better with those, Correa, Lindor, and Baez. Like, it just would have been better. I just would have been better. So, Puerto Rico, decent team, but they would have also had it probably would have been like US, DR, Japan, and then like Venezuela and Puerto Rico right there. Then you would have had a good, like, 4 or 5, maybe Mexico as the 6, So, yeah, but it's about representing your country too. And the WBC's become really cool. And it's not necessarily, like, as big as the Olympics, but it's still pretty cool to have. I think as baseball fans, it's something that we really like to have. Maybe not on a mainstream level, but the WBC is fun to have as baseball fans. But yeah, one last thing. It is weird because I don't want to look, if there's heritage for certain players. Like, I know Aaron Nola is playing for Team Italy, and I think he has heritage to his grandmother or something like that. I'm not sure exactly what it is. Like, it's cool. It's fine. The weird one is, like, how is Arenado playing for Puerto Rico when he's already played for the US in the past? That one feels weird. Like, Arenado in his prime playing for the US, and now he's going to go play for Team Puerto Rico. Probably because they didn't have room for him on the Team US roster. I guess I don't know what the exact reason is. It's a bit of a weird one to me. Like, you already played for the US, now you're playing for Puerto Rico. I don't know. I'm not going to kill some. I was thinking about, like, ripping some other players for for some of their other countries. These other countries, like Harrison Bader playing for Team Israel. Um, I don't know. Taiwan Walker for Mexico, and Taiwan Walker played for Mexico last time too. So I don't know, man. It's just kind of a weird one for me. But the one I really had kind of a weird issue with was Arenado playing for Team Puerto Rico now. Like, dude, aren't you kind of like, we know you for Team US. That's some weird stuff, man. Like, you're going to play in the World Cup and go from, you got Ronald, I'm going back some years, Ronaldinho going from the Brazil to play for the US, which makes no sense, which is the point. I don't know. It's kind of weird. Kind of weird for me. So WBC, though, we're going to get it very, very soon. Cannot wait. Just about 3 weeks away, somewhere around that. So can't wait for the WBC. It's going to be, and the U.S. team is so stacked. We know they're trying to get some revenge against Japan and just go try to win this tournament. They should be the favorite, most years. But it's not like, DR always has good teams. Japan always has good teams. Some of these other Latin countries also have pretty good teams. But hopefully they can get this whole insurance thing like kind of cleaned up by the next one. I don't know. I would like you want to, it really seems like it's not like a huge issue, but you want to have like Correa and Lindor and Baez playing, because it also makes it better for the tournament when Puerto Rico has like a better team than this. Like, Puerto Rico's had really good teams in the past. So yeah, but I am ready for the WBC. I cannot wait. All right, latest hot stove moves. There weren't like huge ones. I mean, obviously the Framber one for sure. That was the big one. But we did have a trade. I'll get to some of these other smaller deals in a second. But Brendan Donovan was traded to the Seattle Mariners, goes from the Cardinals to the Mariners in a 3-team trade. It was the Mariners, Cardinals, and Rays. Some details on the trade real quick. Mariners get Brendan Donovan. Cardinals get a bunch of prospects. They get the switch pitching, Durangelo Sagente, who is the MLB number 91 ranked prospect, 91st ranked prospect, according to MLB Pipeline. They get a couple of other prospects from the Mariners. There's Ty Pete. I'm definitely getting some of these names wrong due to the pronunciation. Yeah, definitely great for me to get some of these pronunciations wrong. I apologize. Colton Ledbetter, can say that one pretty good. And they get a couple of competitive balance round B picks, number 68 and number 72. 68 from the Mariners and number 72 from the Rays. And then the Rays get Ben Williamson from the Mariners. So I think it's a pretty good trade, especially for the Cardinals and the Mariners. For the Cardinals, they've been trying to rebuild. They're in rebuild mode now. You finally get off the Arenado trade. Does Heimblum, and now he gets rid of Brendan Donovan, pretty like underrated player, OBP for his career around like 360, good all around as far as being able to get on base, solid hitter, and able to be a pretty good fielder, utility player as far as, I wouldn't say utility player, but I guess utility player, right? Just because he can play outfield, he can play some of the infield, can play third base, look like he's going to be Seattle's third baseman. Fangraphs has him leading off in that lineup. And I guess you had to fill a hole going from Ben Williamson to start last year to Eugenio Suarez, who traded for at the deadline. And the Mariners don't bring back Eugenio Suarez. The Reds end up scooping him up for a 1-year, $15 million deal last week. And so the Mariners make a pretty good deal. Mariners make a good deal for Brendan Donovan, someone who can provide you some defense, provide you offense, and I think it's a good swap. And the Cardinals, for them, they're someone who again is trying to rebuild, and you get the switch pitcher, you get the the Mariners' number 11 overall prospect, who's now the number 15 prospect, and then you get Ledbetter, who was the Rays 24th overall prospect. So I think it's a good trade for all these teams involved, especially the Cardinals and the Mariners. So I like the trade for Brendan Donovan. I like it a lot. Paul Goldschmidt going back to the Yankees on a 1-year deal. There's not any specifics on the amount of money that he's going to get from the Yankees, but he gets a 1-year deal from the Yankees. Probably going to be coming off the he's not going to be starting. Looks like it's going to be Ben Rice, and rightfully so. Goldschmidt's been really declining since his MVP year in 2022 for the Cardinals. His numbers have gone down. 10 homers last year for the Yankees. I think it's a good deal for the Yankees and for Goldschmidt. It made sense. Miguel Andujar going to the San Diego Padres on a 1-year, $4 million deal. Fangraphs has him slotted in at the DH. Ryan O'Hearn, who was traded to the Padres last year, no longer there, and he's going to the Pirates. So you get Andujar to fill that slot, as O'Hearn was their DH last year when he was traded. And you get Andujar, who goes on a 1-year, $4 million deal. IKF, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, goes to the Red Sox on a 1-year, $6 million deal. Man, the Red Sox, I mean, they are settling for IKF. Missed out on Alonso, missed out on Schwarber, missed out on bringing back Alex Bregman. Man, if you're a Red Sox fan, it's like this is your consolation prize, I guess. I mean, the Red Sox, weird offseason. Yes, they get Ranger Suarez, but I mean, offensively, I mean, after losing out on trading Devers and then not bringing back Bregman, I'm pretty sure Red Sox fans aren't too happy with that. So IKF signing with the Red Sox on a 1-year, $6 million deal. Carlos Santana, who feels like he's played for the entirety of Major League Baseball, going to the D-backs on a 1-year, $2 million deal. So that is what I have for you on some of those hot stove moves. Also, real quick on a couple other things in the meat and potatoes before we get to some of the final things on today's episode. Jasson Dominguez, who, kind of, I would say a rocky start to his career. Clearly one of the more exciting prospects in recent memory, calling him the Martian. This guy can do everything. And looks like he's going to start the season in Triple-A. According to John Heyman, MLB Network's John Heyman, New York Post John Heyman, reports that barring something unforeseen, Jasson Dominguez looks to be headed for Triple-A to start the year. And to be honest, man, I mean, probably not a lot of room for him as far as, look, Trent Grisham has a breakout year, 34 home runs. Who sees that coming? Grisham's going to be your center fielder. You're going to have Judge and right, and then you're going to have Bellinger, looks like, in left field, and you're not going to replace those guys. And, I mean, you're not going to have him coming off the pine. You're not going to do that for a guy that you're trying to get reps with. He did have a bad second half last year, and apparently Cashman was looking for him to potentially go be sent down in the second half last year, but they didn't do that. And I don't know. Does this mean he's going to be traded? Are you going to trade Dominguez? I mean, Spencer Jones is also there, and Spencer Jones had a huge year and between Double and Triple-A last season. So what does that mean for these guys? For guys like Spencer Jones, for Jasson Dominguez, are they going to trade these guys? I mean, maybe Grisham doesn't repeat what he did last year, and I don't know, but you got Judge and Bellinger, and Bellinger you just gave a long-term deal to. We know Judge is here for a long time, and I don't know. And Giancarlo Stanton, you're not going to move one of these guys to DH because Stanton's your DH, and as long as Stanton's able to be healthy, you want him to be your guy. So, yeah, it's a really interesting situation there with Jasson Dominguez. I don't know. Does this mean he's traded? What does this mean? But looks like he's gonna start the year in Triple-A. Also, last thing, man. I mean, this Emmanuel Clase news. Last year comes out that Clase involved in intentionally, throwing pitches, intentionally, throwing some of these, throwing balls and whatnot to help out gamblers and get money for it. And Emmanuel Clase recently reported ESPN.com saying accused of throwing suspicious pitches to benefit bettors in at least 48 games over 2 years, much more than was initially revealed by federal prosecutors, according to a court document filed on Thursday. I mean, 48 games over 2 years. And this is going back in 24, he had like a monster year, like a .61 ERA, 6.67 ERA plus. Pretty good. And, he had like kind of for his terms last year, a down year. And you look at what happens with this betting scandal, like, oh, maybe this makes sense now. But man, go back to the year before that, though. This is like 48 games over 2 years. So this is like 48 games as last year. This is 48 games over 2 years, which is just kind of ironic. But man, this situation's crazy. Could potentially get up to 20 years in prison, depending. I don't know how much he's actually going to get, but this is just a crazy development. Gets crazier. So that's the latest on the Emmanuel Clase. All right, a couple more things that I want to get to before we get out of here on episode 109 of The Shift. So the Marlins, man, I enjoy when we see some of these throwback jerseys because some of these throwback jerseys are legendary. Over here in Philadelphia, they're the Sixers. They get their 01 classics. They finally wear them after fans have been, really wanting them. And we get them this year, and I do like that they brought them back. So the Miami Marlins, who we all know are the Florida Marlins deep at heart, and they're doing that this time by revealing teal jerseys that they're going to wear on their Sunday home games. You're going to wear these teal-colored tops that they're going to wear at home games. And, it's funny. I thought that they had worn these before in the 90s, but they have not. They have not. The Marlins have brought back last couple of years, they brought back some of the jerseys that they used to wear in the 90s, but they were the pinstripe, black and white with the, teal, coloring on some of the lettering, I think. And they brought back those, but this year they're going to be bringing back just teal tops, which again, I thought that they had worn these in games before, but they did not in the 90s. They only wore these as batting practice tops. They're really dope. If you're watching, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple or wherever, I'm sorry you can't see these, but just imagine teal colored tops for the Marlins, lettering and logo that they had in the 90s and some of the 2000s. And they're really, really cool. And I'm glad they're bringing these back. And they've never worn these in regular season games. So these are going to be the first time that they're going to wear these as alternates, and which is cool for Sunday home games, which is really, I think is really cool. So I will say this for some of these teams in modern day sports, my only issue with some of these is that they have gone so in on some of these jerseys that it's we don't need for 5 different jerseys. Why can't we just have home and away and then alternates that you wear? And maybe I'm thinking about this too much in the grand scheme of sports, but I don't know. Are there one thing I will ask, are there too many jerseys being brought back? Do some jerseys just need to stay in the past, or just need to be worn once or twice a year? Just curious. I mean, the Phillies do have, I know I'm keeping it at home here in Philly, but the Phillies have their powder blues that they wear, every Thursday home game, every Thursday home game that they have. And the Marlins are kind of doing the same thing here. So I don't know, just kind of a thought there. But it's cool that they're bringing back these Marlins teal jerseys that they wore as batting practice tops in 93 and 94 when the team was brought in 1993. So pretty cool that the Marlins are bringing these back. All right, to close out the show, go into football for a second because we do have the Super Bowl tonight. Seahawks and the Patriots, probably the least anticipated Super Bowl that I can remember. I mean, I think since I've started watching football, I don't think I can remember a game that probably had the least amount of juice to it. They're released with, the first year I ever watched Super Bowl that I can really remember watching was 2005 when the Eagles played the Patriots and the Eagles lost to the Patriots in that Super Bowl. And Every year since then, I think there's been some juice to a Super Bowl. There's been some juice. There's at least some storylines that people were looking forward to. Not really any big storylines this year, man. The Patriots, they're back after a 7-year hiatus between going from Brady to Mac Jones now to Drake May. But I don't think Drake May is like a real polarizing player. Maybe not just yet. I don't know. Sam Darnold's a nice story, and I do like Darnold kind of silencing some of these critics. I don't dislike Sam Darnold like these other fans. But I don't know, man. It's not like a super big Super Bowl as far as storylines go. JSN, maybe the best receiver in football now, but I don't know. Two really good defenses. Mike Vrabel going for his first as a head coach, in his, return with a team that he played for and won Super Bowls with, during his playing career. But not a whole lot of juice to the Super Bowl. But I am excited for it nonetheless. And I'm going to go Seahawks 24, Patriots 21. I think the Patriots defense has been really good this postseason. They've been really good throughout the regular season. So I don't expect either defense to have a bad game. I just think the Seahawks offense has been really good this postseason, especially the last two games against San Fran and against the Rams. That I think the Seahawks offense playing consistently better this postseason is the reason why they're going to win. I think they're going to win on a field goal in the fourth quarter. Maybe just to win it at the buzzer, something like that. So I got Seahawks 24, Patriots 21. Let me know. You can follow me on Twitter at Rojas_media_, and you can let me know who you have winning the game. But putting this out on Sunday afternoon before the Super Bowl. So that's going to do it for me. Let me know your thoughts on all of the topics from today's show. I want to say one more time, rest in peace to Terrence Gore. Unfortunately, passes away at the young age of 34. Really, really sad. But rest in peace, Terrence Gore. Let me know what you think of the Valdez move for the Tigers. What do you think of, that going along with Scooble now? He's probably not going to be back with the Tigers after 2026. So there's that. WBC rosters, all the latest hot stove moves, everything that we talked about today. So that will do it for me. Follow the Shift everywhere on social media, wherever you get your podcasts, all that good stuff. And I'll talk to you guys soon.